This reading is from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda, and these are parallel commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Last week we asked the question, why do devotees fall? And we considered the downfall of Judas in this context. Jesus, in answer to Judas's criticism for allowing Mary to rub his feet with spikenard, a very costly ointment, said, "The poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always." Jesus is saying here that there is one supreme injustice that needs eradication. Poverty, yes, but not of a material kind. Poverty in a spiritual sense. Divine blessings are not common in this world. They are extraordinary. When they come, we should give them priority above every other consideration. Never allow a moment of inner joy, for instance, to be set aside for lesser duties. Divine attunement is our highest priority. As Lahiri Mahashai, the guru of Yogananda's guru, said, to listen to the heart's inner sound, Om, which issues from the very center of our being, is man's highest duty. Mary was not at that moment communing with the Master inwardly. She was serving him outwardly, but in a spirit very different from the restless fussing for which Jesus had reprimanded her sister, Martha. Those who see a radical difference between the paths of action and meditation should understand this distinction. To serve in the right spirit is necessary, for only thereby can we overcome our karmic tendencies toward restless activity. The important thing is that that spirit be always inwardly focused, that in everything we do, we act in loving service to the Lord. Whenever the Spirit of God descends upon you, however, remember the words of Jesus, "Me ye have not always with you." The Bhagavad Gita says in the 3rd chapter, "The state of freedom from action, that is, of eternal rest in the Spirit, cannot be achieved without action. No one, by mere renunciation of outward non-involvement, can attain perfection." Paramhansa Yogananda once explained to a disciple, to attain the actionless state of divine union, you must first be intensely active for God. The key to right action lies in those words, be active for God. Action for God, properly understood, means action in God. Service, in other words, performed in the consciousness of God's constant presence and guidance. There is always a temptation on the spiritual path to go to extremes. The devotee learns that God can be found only in inner silence, so he decides, I must renounce all action. Or again, he is told that service is purifying, so he cries, let me devote all my time to serving God. The secret of the spiritual life is to balance meditation with selfless service. To serve God enthusiastically while failing to nourish one's enthusiasm with inner peace is like working night and day while failing to restore one's energy with sleep. Once calmness is lost in a welter of outward activity, soul attunement becomes lost also. Spiritual service lies particularly in the consciousness one brings to one's actions, rather than in the actions themselves. People whose consciousness is centered in their bodies tend to confuse productivity with physical exertion, as though digging ditches were more productive than devoting one's life, as Socrates did, to the serene pursuit of wisdom. People, again, whose consciousness is centered in mere things, confuse true value. Yeah.
Silence your phones.
Please, if you haven't already, please just put your phone on silent.
We haven't had to say that.
It's actually a pleasure to say that.
Yeah, but please, someone's phone is also whistling,
Yeah.
So please make sure your phone is on silent. Thanks.
People, again, whose consciousness is centered in mere things, confuse true value with profit. If we want to please God, our consciousness must be centered in Him. What we actually accomplish for Him outwardly is of lesser importance, for God is always pleased in Himself. He is bliss itself. It is we who must feel His smile in our hearts. We must strive to feel His presence with us not only in the inner silence of meditation, but during activity. Right spiritual attitude is difficult to maintain if it doesn't spring from an inner upliftment of consciousness. The longer and the more deeply one meditates in addition to working for God, the closer he will approach the divine ideal. Indeed, there comes a time on the spiritual path when the balance shifts from outward to inward activity. The practice of meditative techniques important for calming and concentrating the mind become then one's spiritual work. This too is activity and should be performed as outward services in a spirit of loving offering to God. Meditative service, again, like outward work, must be balanced on ever deeper levels of consciousness by the stillness of inner communion. The more deeply one meditates, the less necessary it becomes for him to engage in outward activities at all. At the same time, one must be faithful to one's duties in life. Meditation should not be made an excuse for avoiding dutiful action. A good rule regarding the length of meditation is to meditate as long as circumstances and inspiration allow, and then to carry that inspiration out into activity, consciously impregnating everything one does with peace and joy. As Paramahansa Yogananda put it, be ever actively calm and calmly active. The important thing is to keep the mind alert, willing, and creatively aware. Be always even-minded and cheerful, Yogananda said. If fatigue comes, whether while meditating or acting, never accept the thought that you and your true inner self are tired. Never allow yourself to sink into mental dullness or apathy. Tell yourself simply, my body needs rest. One who goes to sleep with the thought of exhaustion will wake up the next morning tired still, no matter how many hours he sleeps in the meantime. But if despite his exhaustion he falls asleep with the strong thought, my body needs rest, but tomorrow I will rise again to serve God with enthusiasm, he will wake the next morning completely refreshed. Dynamic vitality or listlessness. Both of these depend on the thoughts one sends or carries with him into the subconscious. The greater the will, Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, the greater the flow of energy. Action for God, when the zeal for it is derived from the action of meditation, is one of the best ways of stimulating the will and of lifting our consciousness into that dynamic state of bliss from which the entire universe sprang. To act with the consciousness of God's joy within is the best way of pleasing Him, whose only sorrow, if we may call it that, is that so many of His human children have closed themselves off from His joy. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be back again. You know, one thing I noticed when I had my injury, I'd get tired very easily, but I also noticed that the next day, if I, after sleeping, I was okay again. And that's kind of a form of, I could have gone to sleep saying, oh my God, I'm just so exhausted and injured. But instead I would say, I know a little rest is going to make me feel better. And in the morning, I would just feel better. So it wasn't something I did on purpose. I also noticed that my body would recover. And so we have to, that's part of when we go to sleep, I'm so exhausted. But these human bodies tend to bounce back, don't they? And so it's important to notice, oh yes, when I get some sleep, I just feel better. So to not overemphasize the exhaustion thought, but to emphasize, oh, just rest. And then the next day I know that I'm going to feel recovered. It really is helpful, and it's not just some trick of the mind that, that the way it's Swamiji writes it, one could misinterpret that and think, oh, I have to trick myself by not saying I'm exhausted before I go to sleep. Actually, Master was saying it in his writings. But it's not that. It's more about just knowing that with some rest I feel better. And so rather than I'm so exhausted I must sleep, just say I have to rest, and I know that when I've rested I'll feel better. It's a good thing to feel, not just to say I'm tricking my mind by saying it, but rather I'm feeling this. I know it. I know that with rest I feel better. And so just it's important to do that. So also I would highly recommend put your phones away when you're in the temple, and try not to be distracted, because today I'm talking about a little bit about restlessness too. But I want to start off with the beautiful and wonderful affirmation of calmness. And it's one of the most important qualities on the spiritual path, calmness. Of course, I could say that about many qualities. In Master's description of the different manifestations of the divine that we can feel in meditation, but we can feel outside of meditation as well. Two are peace and calmness. And I remember when I first read this, I thought, aren't they the same thing? Isn't peace the same thing as calmness? But Swamiji makes a very important difference in the two. Peace is something we can feel. Actually, beginner meditators can feel peace very easily, as can all of us. But it's a wonderful experience to have when you first start meditating, to have that peace, which is you close all the doors, you turn off the lights, you're in front of your altar, or you're in this temple, and nothing else is bothering us, and there's an absence of distraction, there's an absence of, bothering things happening, and that brings peace. Peace is the absence of disturbance. It's the absence of it. So your environment has to be kind of controlled in order to feel that peace. Because, and it's only peace when you walk out the door of this temple and you get in your car and it's like, get out of my way, that kind of a thing, or you're just back into it. But at least you had peace. It's a start. It's very important. And so calmness comes only really after, unless you're born with it, and we've all meditated in past lives, so we're bringing various levels of calmness within us. But over time is really how we gain calmness, over time of meditating. And it's a good motivator to meditate. It's like, I want calmness. Now, first I'll go into calmness. So with calmness, we are more like a tree with a deep root system. And when you go up to a tree and push on it, it doesn't go like that. Maybe a sapling does, but just a regular old tree, you push on that tree and it's just, and that's what calmness is. When the disturbances of life push on us and we instead go inward and feel this deep calmness around it, like, I know that I'll be guided in the right way to move through this. It doesn't mean we repress our emotions and say, oh, no, 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 I'm spiritual, therefore nothing bothers me. Instead, we, wherever we are in our level of calmness, we can always go deeper. And meditation brings that naturally. It's not something I've really got to work on my calmness, although that is true. But really that calmness comes from deeper and deeper meditation. And restlessness is the opposite of calmness. And restlessness, I think, is something we've all had over and over in spades during this pandemic, restlessness. Just an example of restlessness is you're watching Zoom and you decide, I better, also catch up on my emails and I better do this and that during a meditation or during, satsang or something like that. It's a sign that restlessness has got a hold of you. And not only that, with restlessness, it comes onto us slowly but surely. It sneaks in. And so first, you're feeling just fine, but then, maybe we can close the door. You're feeling just fine, but then your thoughts kind of take you. And what the pandemic did was it created boredom. We were stuck in our homes and trapped, not able to go out. It creates a need to stimulate in order to feel better in life if you're just trapped. And so that stimulation is, if I do this and I do that and I do this and I do that, then, I don't have to just feel trapped. It's a way to not feel the discomfort and a way to cope, I have to say. Imagine you're in prison and what would you do? There are some saints who go into bliss and levitate and do all sorts of things in prison. There's others who go crazy. And, what would we do? We are Kriya Yogis. We have the ability to meditate. But would we really? Well, the pandemic was kind of a sample of what we might do in jail, trapped at home. But with discomfort comes kind of self-soothing behaviors that are not soothing on a deep level. They're trying to just distract us away from our discomfort. And we get in this habit of just doing these behaviors, whether it's I got to watch this video and that video and this video and that video and what else is there, and just whatever is the next distraction that can happen. Even your spiritual home becomes another distraction. Okay, in 1 hour I'll watch the sadhana, or I'll watch the satsang, and then the hour after that I'll watch this and I'll do that and I'll do this, all inside the home. It just creates a distraction. So really, I think people are trying to get through that now. Now that people can go out of their homes and have more of an ability to, expand their life again, there's still that habit of distraction and restlessness. And yet also sort of a desire to leave the house. Probably not a lot. And maybe because it's not completely safe yet. Who knows? But that restlessness, let's get over that now. Let's get over that. It's very important to work on that restlessness. Now, sooner or later you will, because something will happen in life that is greatly disturbing, whether it's financial or family or whatever it is. Something will happen, and then you'll go, oh my God, I better meditate. Because I'm going to go crazy with this feeling I'm having, and my distractions aren't able to make me cover up how horrible I'm feeling. And so then it takes suffering to make us finally seek calmness. But let's cut that step out. Let's just say, wait a minute. There's another motivation for calmness, and that is deep spiritual bliss. That is the feeling that life will be okay somehow, sooner or later, one way or another, because I have this deep inner strength that I'm building and growing inside of me. And it feels good. It feels really good. It feels better than any suffering. Swamiji would talk about the pinch, unpinch theory, which we've talked about periodically. There's a great suffering. Pinch. Now the suffering has gone away. Unpinch. Is that a spiritual growth? Not necessarily. It just means we're not pinched anymore. But sometimes we'll say, oh, I'm suffering so much. This is a horrible thing to happen. And then it stops. And we're like, by the grace of God, I feel so much better and in God and in bliss. It's like, guess what? We're just not pinched anymore. What we want to do is feel the blessing during the pinch. We want to feel the calmness during the pinch. That's the goal, is to feel that calmness and feel that joy and the peace that comes with that and the divine love that comes with that. The best way I can think of it is here in this temple, that when we're in our homes, when we're in our cars, there's just that extra layer of restlessness that is difficult to resist. Just extra. But you come into this temple, and a whole layer is instantaneously removed of restlessness, is removed from your life. Just instantaneously. And then you get to experience a much calmer existence. And then it reminds you, oh yeah. And it's that reminding that we constantly need. So just think about your habits. Think about a little bit of change. Maybe you can also feel, maybe the world is a little bit sort of safer now, or we've come to a way of living in it where we can feel a little safer and not in fear for our lives or our loved ones' lives. And so we can do that. We can step out of the restlessness. Step out of it. Drop it. Take a moment to, do something extra spiritual. Now, the other thing that happens at home and trapped inside is tamasic energy. And then in that way, we're just too tired to do anything. Just too tired. And no, I just don't want to get in the car and go to the temple, or I don't want to do that. It's too nice to just be here and press a button and that kind of a thing. So I want to do something with us. Let's just all do let's all stand. So when you find yourself in a tamasic state, you can't just sit and meditate. You never will. Tamasic has to go through Rajasic to get to Sattvic. Meditating is Sattvic. Now, if we're just living in restlessness says meditation is boring. So can you meditate during restlessness? No. So you can't meditate when you're tired. You can't meditate when you're restless. So you have to move through those stages, which means directing the energy. At least restlessness has energy. Tamasic has no energy. But what can we do? Let's do a full yogic breath, okay? So let's just bend over at the waist and kind of dangle the arms. And then let's sweep the body, coming up with a nice deep exhalation. And stretch out so that the heart is open. Feel the heart opening when the arms are up. Now exhale, coming down. And now inhale. Again, stretch open the heart, and then exhale. And one more time, inhale. Stretch, welcome the world, and exhale. And then come back up. Let's take our seats. How long did that take? 30 seconds. Do you feel, I feel like the room has more light in it. I see the eyes are a little bit more awake. Sorry if I was boring you. But that's all it takes. Now that's tamasic to rajasic. Now rajasic means do the energization exercises, run around the block early in the morning. Do something with that restless energy. Physically doing something with that restless energy is a lot better than reaching for the next thing and feeding the restless energy. So do something with the restless energy, and then maybe when you come back, you'll be ready to meditate. So you have to go through the stages, hopefully quickly, but you can't ignore what state you're in. That's what I love about the gunas, and the Gita goes into the gunas quite a bit. It's an important part of the spiritual path to understand the gunas. Those in level 2 will read about it if you haven't already. So we want to invite that calmness to come in. But if we're too tired, no. And if we're too restless, boring. That's boring. Where's the next stimulating great thing? So I'm not chastising doing rajasic things, because we all like to go to movies and we all like to go out and have fun and that kind of a thing. But we don't want to replace meditation with the distractions at all. And Master said the more we meditate, the more we will feel fulfilled and want to meditate more. Now, in this reading, which I don't have a lot of time to go into, but I love that quote that Christ said to his disciples as a guru. He's a guru speaking to disciples. Any guru could say this. Me ye have not always. It's old language. Basically, you will not have me always. You will not have me always. And as the reading began, deep spiritual experiences are fleeting in this world. They're rare. And so when they happen, we want to be able to experience it and hold on to it, and to feel it's sacred and special, and take it as a gift that comes, and not just try and, gotta go cook breakfast now, that kind of a thing. We want to receive the gift of bliss or divine love or whatever comes to us, and feel the gratitude in our hearts as well when it comes, and experience it as fully as we can. I remember whenever I was around Swamiji, I would always think to myself, don't waste this moment. Don't waste it. And so I would always try and meditate around him a little bit. Not if he was engaging us, but if you're in a big crowd, you can just close your eyes and try and just feel and pray, and try not to waste the moment, because we didn't have him forever, did we? Of course, we have him in our hearts forever. And it takes a little more effort to feel it inwardly, but once you learn how, it's there, just like Master is there inwardly always. And so we don't want to ignore those moments or rush out, and that's what restlessness does. First of all, remember Sri Yukteswarji in the Autobiography of a Yogi, when Babaji visited him, and he was all excited about it, and then he, just a minute, I want to get some sweets. and Babaji disappeared, and he was very mad, disappointed and hurt, really. And later Babaji said, well, your restlessness drove me away. So we want to get rid of our restlessness, so we invite these spiritual experiences to come to us as well. As long as we're in restlessness, we're just not going to be able to experience it. And imagine being a disciple of any guru who says, me ye have not always, and you think, well, of course not. We're all going to die sooner or later. That would be one level of interpretation of the restless disciple. The restless disciple would say, yeah. But then the deeper a disciple is, the more they're going to go, what did he actually mean by that? Are you going to go away on a trip? That would be the second most restless response. But those who could really tune in, what is meant by this? He was saying, I'm going to go, and in a big dramatic way. And so a deep disciple might say, okay, a little concerning. I may have to ask him about this, but I'm going to meditate on it and kind of feel. I can't think that some of the disciples who were deeper did not anticipate something was going to happen. And Christ did give hints along the way. Some gurus don't have big, giant, dramatic lives. Luckily Master, he had good drama in his life, powerful avatar. Thank goodness we didn't have to live with some horrible dramatic ending of his, and Swamiji lived a long life, and we didn't have to live with a horrible dramatic ending. I would think it would be traumatizing for a disciple to have something like that happen before your eyes. But anyway, the whole purpose was actually to help bring in Dwapara Yuga. And so there was a purpose for that drama and to kind of start moving out of Kali Yuga, which was a horrible thing for a lot of people, back into the age of energy, which is where we are now. So anyway, those who were deeper were starting to think, okay, and trying to feel on a much deeper level what was going on in there. And it's a very good reminder that whenever any spiritual experience comes, we want to think, me have not always. And how long will this center last? Hopefully forever. But you want to, while you have it, be in it and utilize it to the fullest. We're hoping to build on the roof at some point and have an even bigger center, but first we have to kind of stabilize after this pandemic. It's not the time to expand. But anyway, each step by step we take. So nice to see those of you who could come, and to hope that you are feeling the deep presence of Master more and more inside your hearts. And every person who comes adds energy to this center and adds, just a life to this center. For the 2 years that we were, locked up in the house and everything, and then we finally were able to meditate in a group. It felt like coming out of the desert into the oasis, to just be able to be with others and share in that. And that's something we all experienced in terms of the me ye have not always, because we had the center was just fine, and then suddenly the pandemic came and we all missed the center, and suddenly it's taken away. And just remember how that felt. We want to take advantage of it and fully be present and come and contribute the energy. And people, I think, have forgotten about service, which I'm going to get the volunteer notebook out at some point and encourage people to come as often as possible during the week. I know that for me, satsang, my whole life at Ananda, has felt like my weekly rejuvenation. And then we're going to start up Wednesday night classes now again. And so you can come, and it can be like a midweek recharge like it used to be. We stopped doing the Thursday night meditations because hardly anyone came. It was down to 2 people. Not that the 2 people were not definitely precious and worthwhile, but we do events so that many people come. So we have to figure out what else is going to make people come. We're going to have some retreats as well. So hopefully that will draw our spiritual family together again. And it's just such a joy to see you all and be together. God bless you.